A pre-start health and safety review is required by law under Section 7 of Ontario's Regulation for Industrial Establishment. The current requirement, which came into effect on October 7, 2000, resulted from consultations with stakeholders looking to improve the previous process. It could be explained that before 1997, pre-development reviews were submitted to Ministry for approval. As the economy grew, so did delays in receiving approval. Government tends to be a little bit slower on this type of business. The ministry responded by privatizing the review process through licensed professional engineers. This speeded up the reviews, but stakeholders saw other opportunities for improvement, including focusing the reviews on specific structures, processes, and equipment, and stating in PSR report exactly which standards and regulations had been met. These changes and others became law in 2000. The Section 7, Table 1, Ontario Regulation 851, in Appendix 1 specifies the provisions of the regulation that apply and circumstances under which a pre-start health and safety review is required. There may be other compliance requirements that need to be met before any apparatus, protective elements, structures, and processes are used. Here in this Table 1, Section 7, you will see when PSR is required. It is obviously when you have under Item 1 flammable liquids. Under Item 2, you have safeguarding devices, which could be light curtains, safety masks, two-hand controls, and so on, or interlock guarding. Then you have to do PSR. If you have storage racks or pallet racking, then you will have to do PSR is Item 3. If processes could have a risk of ignition or explosion, then you have to do PSR. If you have dust collectors that again could have a risk of ignition, of explosion, you have to do PSR. Item 6, in factories that produce aluminum or steel or its foundry, you have to do PSR. Then traveling crane, lifting devices, or automobile hoist, then you have to do PSR. And Item 8, if you have a process that may produce toxic substances, you have to do PSR. Integrating health and safety at the design stage and before operations begin is a cost-effective and proactive way to prevent workplace illness or injury. The benefits are numerous. They include direct savings from minimizing retrofitting, less downtime and replacement of equipment, savings in workplace insurance claims due to fewer illnesses and injuries, and most important, maintaining productivity, health, and safety in the workplace. Regulation 851 describes when the pre-start health and safety review, and we have a number of flow charts telling us when we have to perform PSR or is there any exemption and how to use it. Bottom line, if you have new equipment that has any of the safety features like light curtains, e-stop, any interlock barrier guarding, you have to do PSR. If you modify any of the safety features, you have to do PSR. Again, for the existing equipment, if you don't change anything, even the standards change, you don't have to do PSR. Here you have a flow chart for guarding provisioning exemptions, and then you have flow charts for rack and stacking structures exemptions. If you have brand new rack that you get, from manufacturer, what is the load and elevation for each of these levels, then you don't have to do PSR. However, at the moment that you relocate that rack or change elevation from the floor to the first set of beams, or from one set of beams to the next set of beams, you have to do PSR. And people don't realize how critical this one is. Let's say this upright here can hold 15,000 pounds, and each set of beams can hold 5,000 pounds. That is fine as long as the certain distance between these levels is. But assume that you are removing, one set of beams. You are having only 10,000 pounds and your upright is 15,000 pounds. You will think it's fine. However, if this height exceeds certain level, this upright won't be able to hold these 10,000 pounds. And that's why it's quite important to do PSR on the racking. Then we have spray boot exemptions, lifting devices exemptions, and so on. Here, we have a list of the standards that we use when we perform pre-start health and safety review. 3 are extremely important for us. This is Z432, which is machinery guarding. Z142 is press code, and 434 is code for robotics. Regulation A51 and its guidelines do not prescribe how pre-start health and safety review is to be done. And the regulation allows for flexibility in that it does not specify any one report format. Here, I would like to explain, one of the formats I've been using for the, pre-start health and safety review. The process starts at the moment that new engineer or engineer who is going to perform PSR is hired or the contract is signed. And company that need, PSR will send a copy of the circuit diagrams, electrical, hydraulic, pneumatics, to that engineer, showing the emergency stops, guarding interlocks, and the main power flow to the prime movers, like i.e. motors, clamping solenoids, etc. The diagram should also show a layout indicating guarding, different work envelopes, danger zones, and any moving parts. Engineer will review these prints and prepare a report indicating any discrepancy to the standards. Some of these information will be easier for engineer to obtain if he or she make a visit to the plant to check the equipment in person. They could use a video or digital camera to document the equipment, thus eliminating the need for diagrams showing the guarding. In the event of the control circuit is not available, then the only thing that could be done is to trace out, the wires. At stage 2, engineer will come to the facility, go over machinery, checking the different guards, checking for any pinch points, exposed hazards, and any other unprotected dangers. He or she would need to see the machine in operation for this stage. Again, he or she will prepare a report that outlines the findings. Digital images or a video of equipment will be taken at this stage to support the report at this time. This report would point out any deficiencies as compared to the CSA codes that he or she might uncover with the physical guards and the electrical interlocks of the equipment. At this point, he or she would be able to help you bring the equipment up to the current standards if required. This could take the form of recommendation, or in some cases could be complete installation of the required guards. And again, this is the stage 3 is a written stamped report that states the machinery meets the CSA codes and the requirements of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Here is the sample of one of these PSR reports. First page will define a company that does PSR, and there is a company where the PS equipment is located, usually serial number of the equipment, picture of the equipment could be done, and so on. On the second page will be described the purpose why this report is issued, and we know it's done because of the Section 7 of the Regulation for Industrial Establishment. And then we'll specify why PSR is needed. In this case is because this equipment, this robotic cell, will have light curtains, basically safeguarding devices and barrier guarding, interlock guarding, and that's why it needs to be done. The next element of the report will have a description of the equipment, what kind of equipment is, what kind of safety feature exist, light curtains, interlock barrier guardings, and so on and so forth. It will mention number of emergency stop, and its location, and we'll probably mention that local procedures should be followed if applied. Next part is scope of supply, where we'll define what kind of standards are used in performing the report, and it will define what was inspected, right? Usually the PSR doesn't cover suitability for service. That's not part of the stuff that PSR does. It will specify supporting documents that exist. In this particular case, there was safety PLC. It will specify a manufacturer of the safety PLC. It was PILS. And here is a safety signature, because safety PLC is not hardwired like safety relays, which you're going to learn later on. Anybody can change configuration of that safety PLC. That's why PN will write down what is the safety signature for that particular configuration and under which the equipment is inspected. And then we have findings based on these standards. There are some deficiency. Engineer will list deficiencies and then will stipulate from which parts of the standard they are coming, right? And this, for example, particular case, this is very small deficiency, emergency stop button missing yellow background, but the standard says that the emergency stop device design has to have to be red in color with a yellow background. And so the next part is the risk assessment and the risk reduction methodology. We're going to learn that next week about that one. And here elements how the risk reduction and risk assessment is done. And eventually there is going to be seal and the signature of the PN who perform inspection. Appendix, pictures are telling 1,000 words. We'll show the pictures of the equipment. Here there is a restricted space was not established. That was a deficiency, showing interlock guards, emergency stop on the teach pendants, right? Light curtains, rolling door, and so on and so forth.